The grand hall of the Volari Palace glowed like a sea of stars. Crystal lamps hung from the high ceiling, casting soft blue and silver light over the gathered crowd. Representatives from many alien worlds stood in silence, each waiting for their turn to greet the royal family. The Volari Empire was one of the oldest and most respected civilizations in the galaxy, known for its beauty, discipline, and pride. Among the shining robes and graceful postures stood one figure who looked out of place, a human named Tom. He was not a diplomat, nor a soldier. He was just an engineer, dressed in a clean but simple uniform, holding a data pad in one hand. His job on the nearby orbital station was to fix damaged machinery, not to attend royal gatherings, yet here he was. When the royal messenger had come to the station and announced that one human representative must attend the princess's court, Tom's captain had laughed and said, "You're the only one not busy today. Go represent Earth." So Tom had come, nervous, curious, and completely unaware of what was about to happen. The crowd around him shimmered with colors. Some beings had translucent skin, others wings that reflected light like glass. The Volari nobles stood at the center, elegant and silent, their scales gleaming like liquid silver, and on the golden throne at the far end sat Princess Nira. She was unlike anyone Tom had ever seen. Her tall figure was graceful, her skin covered in fine, iridescent scales that shifted color with her mood, sometimes blue, sometimes gold, sometimes soft purple. Her eyes glowed faintly, like twin moons underwater. To other species, she was said to be beautiful beyond measure. Yet today, as she looked down at the crowd, there was something distant in her expression, almost sadness. The royal announcer's voice broke the silence. "Presenting the honored guests of the Volari court. Let all races of the galaxy be heard before the princess." One by one, representatives stepped forward. From the tall Threxians, the small Yulians, even the mist-bodied Farns. Each offered gifts and compliments, praising the princess's wisdom and beauty. Their words were smooth, rehearsed, and overly polite. When it was finally Tom's turn, he stepped forward nervously. He felt every eye in the room on him. The floor beneath his boots shimmered like glass. He bowed awkwardly, unsure if he was doing it right. Greetings, Your Highness," he said, trying to sound formal. "I'm Tom from Earth. It's, nice to meet you." A few aliens nearby chuckled quietly. Some looked insulted by his lack of ceremony. But Princess Nira raised her hand, silencing the room. Her gaze fell on Tom, curious, almost searching. "You are human," she said in her soft, melodic voice. "I have heard your kind speaks plainly. You do not fear honesty?" Tom blinked, unsure how to answer. We try to be honest. Sometimes too honest, maybe." Her lips curved slightly. "Good. Then tell me something, human." She rose from her throne and stepped closer. The hall went completely still. Even the floating lights seemed to dim as she approached. Her movements were fluid, almost otherworldly. When she stopped a few steps before him, she tilted her head, her golden eyes glowing faintly. "Tell me," she said, her voice calm but carrying a strange weight. "Am I ugly?" Tom froze. The question struck him like a laser to the brain. He stared at her, wide-eyed, thinking he must have misheard. The crowd around him seemed to hold its breath. Ugly? The Princess of Volari, who was considered the symbol of perfection, had just asked if she was ugly. Every alien delegate knew this question. It was part of an old Volari custom, a test of courage and perception. Many had failed it. Some had tried to flatter her with words like divine or radiant, only to be dismissed for sounding insincere. Others had hesitated and earned her cold disapproval, but Tom didn't know the tradition. He was just confused. "Wait, what?" he asked softly. "Am I ugly?" she repeated, her tone perfectly even, though her eyes shimmered with something fragile. Maybe doubt, maybe curiosity. Tom stood there for a long second, processing her words. He didn't know what to say. Every eye in the hall was on him. Every being expected him to stammer, kneel, or beg forgiveness for hearing such a question. Instead, something completely unexpected happened. He laughed. At first, it was a small sound, a nervous chuckle that escaped before he could stop it. Then it grew louder, and soon Tom was laughing openly, holding his stomach. The sound echoed across the silent hall, bright and uncontrollable. The guards tensed. One of the Volari nobles gasped in shock. The air itself seemed to freeze. The princess's eyes widened slightly. For the first time, she looked unsure. Tom tried to stop laughing, but he couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation, standing in a room full of glowing aliens, being asked by a perfect space princess if she was ugly, it was just too much. He finally caught his breath and wiped a tear from his eye. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, trying not to grin. "I didn't mean to laugh at you, it's just—" He paused, shaking his head in disbelief. "You're asking if you're ugly? You look like living starlight. I don't even know how to describe it." How could anyone call that ugly? The hall was silent again. The princess blinked once, twice. Her scales flickered from gold to faint pink, a color none of the aliens had ever seen her display before. It was the Valari sign of surprise. "You find me beautiful?" she asked, her voice uncertain. Tom scratched the back of his neck. "Well, I don't know much about Valari standards, but to me, yeah, you're kind of amazing. The colors, the eyes, it's beautiful in a way that's hard to explain." A murmur rippled through the audience. Some aliens whispered angrily. Others looked confused. To them, a human's laughter in front of royalty was an insult. Yet the princess didn't seem angry at all. In fact, she looked thoughtful. "Human honesty," she said softly, as if testing the words. "So this is what it sounds like." She turned slightly, facing the watching nobles. "Do you hear this? No false praise. No memorized words. He simply speaks what he sees." No one dared reply. Tom stood there, still nervous, but also strangely calm now that he had spoken his mind. The princess finally looked at him again. Her expression softened and a small smile, real, not royal, appeared on her face. "You may rise, Tom of Earth," she said, "and you may stay." The hall buzzed with shock. "Stay?" whispered a Threxian ambassador. "She invites him to stay?" Tom blinked, unsure he heard right. Stay where?" The princess gave a quiet laugh, a sound like music echoing through water. "Here, in my court. I wish to speak with you again. Perhaps your laughter will teach us something we have forgotten." Tom's mouth opened, but no words came out. He had just accidentally laughed at royalty, and instead of being punished, he was being invited to dinner. The guards relaxed. The tension slowly faded from the air, but the whispers didn't stop. From that moment on, every being in the hall would remember the day a human laughed at a princess, and lived. As Tom followed a servant out of the hall, still slightly dazed, he couldn't help but think, what just happened? He had only told the truth. He didn't understand why everyone was acting like it was a miracle. But far behind him, on her golden throne, Princess Nira touched the edge of her own reflection in a crystal mirror. For the first time in her life, when she looked at her reflection, she didn't see a symbol of her empire or a creature of flawless design. She saw herself. And she was smiling. The next morning, the palace was buzzing with rumors. From the kitchen servants to the royal guards, everyone was talking about one strange event. A human who laughed at the princess and lived to tell the tale. In Valari history, no one had ever laughed in front of a royal and gone unpunished. The nobles whispered in disbelief. Some said the princess must have lost her mind. Others thought the human had cast a spell. But the truth was far simpler. Princess Nira had smiled. It was something rare, almost impossible. The royal family of Valari were known for their calm dignity, never showing strong emotion in public. Yet Nira's laughter after Tom's reaction had spread through the palace like wildfire. Tom had no idea what kind of storm he had caused. He sat in his guest chamber, looking out at the shining city below. The sky above the capital was filled with glowing ships and floating bridges. Everything seemed alive with light and motion. He felt small and out of place. He replayed the event in his head again and again. "I laughed at a princess," he muttered to himself. "I actually laughed," he rubbed his face. "Back home, that would have just been awkward. Here, I could have started an intergalactic incident." The door slid open with a soft hiss. A tall silver-scaled attendant stepped in, holding a tray. "Her Highness requests your presence in the Sky Garden," the attendant said in a calm tone. Tom blinked. "She wants to see me again?" "Yes," said the attendant. Immediately. The Sky Garden was one of the most beautiful places in the Valari Palace. It floated high above the city, a dome of glass, filled with glowing plants and pools that reflected starlight even during the day. Tom followed the attendant through a long crystal bridge until he saw Princess Nira, standing near a pool surrounded by silver flowers. She looked different today, less like a ruler, more like a curious scholar. She turned as he approached, her expression calm but soft. "Good morning, human," she said. "You did not sleep well," Tom chuckled. "You could say that. I'm still trying to figure out how I didn't end up in prison." Her golden eyes brightened slightly. "I told them not to harm you. You amused me and you were honest. Those are rare qualities in my court." Tom scratched his head. "Where I'm from, laughing isn't rare. We do it all the time." "That is what makes humans strange," she replied. "You find joy even in confusion." He smiled. "Guess that's our way of surviving." They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the sound of glowing birds flapping their wings nearby. The air smelled faintly of sweet metal and rain. Nira finally asked, "Do you really think I am beautiful?" Tom hesitated. "I think you're different. Beautiful doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. Where I come from, beauty is about feeling, about what makes someone special, not about how they look." She tilted her head. "You mean a scar can be beautiful?" "Sure," Tom said. "Every scar has a story. That's what makes it beautiful." The princess looked down at her reflection in the pool. For the first time, she seemed unsure. "Among my people," she said quietly, "we are judged by how perfect our scales are. Any flaw is seen as weakness. I was born with a small mark near my eye. It is hidden by royal paint. But I hate it. Ever since I was young, I was told it made me imperfect." Tom stepped closer. "Maybe that's the problem. If everyone is perfect, then no one really is." Nira looked up, meeting his eyes. "Humans think differently," he nodded. "We've had to. On Earth, nothing lasts forever. Our world changes fast, weather, seasons, even people. We learn to see beauty in moments, not perfection." She was quiet for a long time, thinking about his words. Then she said softly, "You are unlike the other races I have met. You do not fear what you do not understand." "You laugh at it," Tom smiled. "That's one way to put it. Sometimes we laugh so we don't panic." Her eyes shimmered faintly with amusement. "Perhaps that is your strength." Later that day, the council gathered in the royal chamber. 12 Valari elders, each draped in ceremonial robes, stood in a circle. They had been watching the princess closely since the incident in the hall. "The human is dangerous," said Elder Saran, his voice sharp. "He disrespected the royal bloodline and mocked tradition." Princess Nira raised a hand.
"He did not mock."
"He was sincere. Then he is ignorant," the elder argued. "Either way, he should be removed before others see weakness in your court." The princess's eyes glowed brighter, a sign of her rising emotion. "Do you call honesty weakness?" "Among rulers, yes," Saran replied. "A leader must not be questioned, least of all by a creature from an untested world." Another elder spoke softly. "The Terran Union is new to the Galactic Council. Their people are unpredictable, but their potential cannot be ignored. Perhaps this human's behavior was not arrogance but innocence." The council began to murmur. The Valari were logical, proud, and cautious. To them, humans were still a mystery, emotional, impulsive, and unpredictable. Yet this human had done something no one else had achieved. He had made their princess smile. Finally, the High Elder turned to Nira. "Princess, your decision will shape how the Valari view humans. What will you do?" Nira looked thoughtful. Then she said, "I will not punish honesty. I wish to learn from it." The elders exchanged uneasy glances, but none dared to defy her directly. The decision was made. Days passed, and Tom became a quiet presence in the palace. He helped the engineers fix small systems, energy relays, communication crystals, damaged drones. He didn't understand much of the advanced Valari science, but his creativity and problem-solving skills often surprised them. One afternoon, while repairing a power conduit, he found the princess watching him again. "You could order your technicians to do this," Tom said without looking up. "Why are you watching me?" She smiled faintly. "Because you do not see this as work. You see it as discovery," Tom shrugged. "Every broken thing teaches you something new when you fix it." She tilted her head. "You fix things. You fix machines. Do you also fix hearts?" He looked up, surprised by her question. "I'm not that good," he said with a grin. "But I try." Nira studied him quietly. There was a warmth in her gaze now, something soft and genuine. She realized that Tom's laughter had not been an insult. It had been the sound of something she had not heard in a long time. Life without fear. Meanwhile, news of the humans' behavior began spreading beyond the palace walls. Across the Valari Empire, people whispered about the strange species that dared to laugh at royalty and was still alive. Some saw it as an offense. Others saw it as a miracle. The story reached even the outer colonies, where many citizens began to question their own ideas about beauty and pride. "Maybe the human is right," said a worker in a factory on the moon of Vera. "Maybe we've forgotten how to laugh." One evening, as the twin suns of Velar sat behind the crystal towers, Tom joined the princess in the sky garden again. The air shimmered with soft light and the city sparkled below like a sea of stars. "I've been hearing things," Tom said. "People are talking about me. Some not very nicely." "Yes," she said softly. "They fear what they cannot understand. But fear fades when understanding grows." He looked at her. "You talk like a philosopher," she smiled. "Perhaps I have been listening to a human too long." Tom laughed quietly. "You should try Earth someday. You'd fit right in." "I would like that," she said. Then more quietly, "Tell me something, Tom. Do humans ever doubt their own worth?" He thought for a moment. "All the time. Every day someone feels they're not enough. But we help each other remember. That's what keeps us going." The princess looked at him thoughtfully. "You make weakness sound like strength." He nodded. "Because it is. Admitting weakness is how we grow." For a moment neither spoke. The stars above them glittered and a gentle wind rippled across the garden's pools. Then Nira said softly, "Thank you, Tom. You did not only answer my question, you changed it. I no longer ask if I'm ugly. I ask instead, what makes me real?" Tom smiled. "Now that's a better question." They stood side by side watching the city lights below. Two beings from different worlds, one royal, one ordinary, sharing quiet laughter beneath the stars. Far away, the galactic communication networks began spreading a story that would soon reach countless worlds. The human who laughed at a princess and made her see herself for the first time. Weeks passed since the day Tom laughed in the royal hall. What began as a strange meeting between a human and an alien princess slowly turned into something more. A quiet friendship that no one in the Valari Empire could have imagined. Princess Nira and Tom were seen together often now. Sometimes they walked in the sky garden, surrounded by glowing trees and singing crystals. Sometimes they sat in the royal library, where Nira showed him ancient records written in light. And sometimes they simply talked for hours about their world, 2 different planets, 2 different lives, but one growing understanding. Tom had become comfortable around her, though he never forgot that she was a princess. He still called her Your Highness most of the time, but sometimes when she was in a good mood she allowed him to call her just Nira. At first, the palace staff had whispered behind their backs. Some said the princess was wasting her time with a human. Others believed Tom was trying to gain influence. But after a while the whispers began to fade. Something about their friendship felt genuine. Even the guards who once frowned at Tom's presence now greeted him politely when he passed. One afternoon, Tom found Nira in the royal workshop, standing beside a floating crystal that projected a miniature galaxy. She was studying it closely, her scales glowing faintly blue, the Valari color for deep thought. "Hey," Tom said as he entered. "You look like you're trying to solve the universe." She smiled slightly. "Perhaps I am. This projection shows the border systems near the dying star of Valerian. An old outpost is still there, abandoned for decades. But our scientists believe there are survivors now. Perhaps refugees who stayed behind." Tom looked at the map. "That close to a dying star? That sounds dangerous." "It is," she said quietly. "The radiation field is unstable. But if there are lives there, we must help them." He nodded. "So what's stopping you?" "The council," she said, sighing softly. "They believe it is too risky to send ships so near the star. They think it is a waste of resources. But I cannot ignore it," Tom frowned. "If you wait too long, there might be nothing left to save." Her golden eyes turned toward him. "Would you go, if you were asked to help?" Tom didn't even hesitate. "Of course," her scales flickered silver. Valari for surprise mixed with respect. "You would risk your life for strangers?" Tom shrugged. "They wouldn't be strangers if they needed help." She looked at him quietly for a moment, then smiled. a real warm smile that made her look almost human. "That is what I admire about your people. You do not measure worth before showing kindness." Tom grinned. "We try. Doesn't always work out, but we keep trying." From that day, Nira spoke often about the outpost and her frustration with the council. Tom listened, asked questions, and sometimes offered simple but practical suggestions. One night, as they walked through the glowing corridors of the palace, she asked softly, "Tom, why do humans help others even when they gain nothing in return?" He thought for a moment. "Because we know how it feels to be helpless. I guess helping others makes the universe feel a little less cold." She nodded slowly. "My people see weakness as shame, but you see it as connection." "That's because we fall a lot," he said, chuckling. "We've learned to help each other stand again." Nira smiled. "You make failure sound like an art," he laughed. "It's our greatest invention." As days turned into weeks, the news of their friendship spread far beyond the palace. Across the empire, people began to speak differently about humans. Some admired Tom's courage. Others said he was foolishly bold. But no one could deny that something had changed. The once distant princess now seemed more open, more alive. In one recorded council session, an elder even said, "The princess has learned laughter, and it has made her stronger." Still, not everyone agreed. Elder Siran, the same who had once demanded Tom's removal, grew more suspicious. He believed the human's influence was dangerous. He whispered to other council members, claiming that the princess was being manipulated. One evening, Tom entered the sky garden to find Nira sitting alone on a bench, staring at the stars. Her scales glowed pale blue, the color of worry. He sat beside her. "Rough day?" She nodded slowly. "The council is growing restless. They think I am losing focus because of you." Tom sighed. "Figures. Every time people see two friends who think differently, someone has to turn it into a problem." Nira looked at him curiously. "Do humans also face such things?" "All the time," he said. "People fear what they don't understand. They create stories instead of asking questions." She looked down at her hands. "I do not regret meeting you, Tom. You showed me that beauty is not something to fear. You made me see my reflection without shame." Tom smiled. "And you showed me that aliens can be better listeners than most humans I know." Her golden eyes sparkled faintly. "Is that your version of flattery?" He chuckled. "Maybe." The next day, the council summoned Tom for questioning. The circular chamber was vast and cold, with 12 glowing seats floating in the air. The elder's eyes glowed faintly as they examined him. Elder Saran spoke first. "Human, you have been given kindness in this court. But there are limits. What is your purpose here?" Tom kept his tone calm. "I didn't come here for power or reward. I just wanted to help. The princess asked me questions, and I answered honestly. That's all." "Honesty," Saran repeated, his voice sharp. "A convenient word for influence. You have changed her behavior. She now questions our traditions." Tom met his gaze steadily. "Maybe that's a good thing." A low murmur spread through the chamber. The elders looked shocked at his courage. Saran leaned forward. "You think our traditions need changing?" Tom hesitated, then said slowly, "Every world changes. Even stars die someday. Maybe traditions should learn to breathe, too." The High Elder raised a hand, silencing the room. "Enough. The princess will decide if your words carry truth." Moments later, Nira entered the chamber. Her presence filled the air with calm light. She looked at Tom, then at the council. "I will speak for him," she said firmly. "He has done nothing wrong." Saran frowned. "He questions Valari ways." "Then perhaps we should listen," she said. "If a visitor can see what we ignore, should we not be wiser for it?" The elders exchanged uneasy looks. The High Elder finally said, "Then let his actions prove his worth. There is talk of a mission, the outpost near Valerian. It may serve as a test." Nira's eyes brightened slightly. "Yes," she said quickly. "Let him come with me." "Let us go together." Saran looked doubtful. "If he fails, it will disgrace your name." "Then I will share the blame," she replied. The decision was made. The princess and the human would travel together to save the stranded outpost near the dying star. Later, as they prepared for the mission, Tom walked beside Nira through the hangar. A massive silver ship stood ready, one smooth, elegant, and shining like liquid moonlight. "You sure this is a good idea?" he asked. "Seems like the council just wants to test us." "Perhaps," she said. But even a test can reveal truth. He nodded. So what do we know about the outpost? It is old, built during the early expansion. The radiation storms make communication impossible, but there are faint energy readings. Something is alive there. Then we go see for ourselves, he said with a grin. She looked at him amused. You humans never fear what you do not know. Maybe that's why we keep finding trouble, he said, smiling. Her scales shimmered with a soft pink light, the Volari color for quiet joy. Then perhaps this galaxy needs a little more of your trouble. That night, before departure, Nira stood alone in her chamber. She looked at her reflection in the mirror once again. But this time she didn't hide the small mark near her eye. She traced it gently and whispered, "Imperfection makes me real." When she stepped onto the ship the next morning, Tom was already there, checking the control panels. He waved when he saw her. "Morning, Your Highness. Ready to make history?" She smiled. "I am ready to learn." As the ship lifted from the hangar, the golden towers of Volari grew smaller behind them. The stars stretched ahead like an endless road. Tom looked at Nira and said softly, "You know, if anyone had told me a few weeks ago that I'd be flying into a dying star with an alien princess, I'd have laughed." Nira smiled. Then perhaps laughter is where all good stories begin. The ship entered the light of the dying star, glowing red in the distance. A new chapter was about to unfold, one that would test their courage, trust, and the fragile bond that had begun with a single honest laugh. The news of Tom's growing closeness with Princess Nira spread like starlight through the royal corridors. Some whispered that the princess had fallen under human influence. Others believed Tom had discovered some secret to charm alien royalty. Whatever the truth was, the Volari Council did not like it. Their pride was wounded and they wanted answers. Tom, however, had no idea of the storm forming behind the shining palace walls. He was still busy fixing systems aboard the royal ships and enjoying long talks with Nira. She liked to hear stories about Earth, the blue skies, the rivers, and the small creatures called birds that could fly. Sometimes she laughed softly when he tried to describe rain or snow. To her, these things were magical. To him, she was the one who made the galaxy seem magical. But one morning, as Tom was preparing for his daily inspection of the shipyard, a group of armored guards arrived at his quarters. Their faces were hidden behind crystal masks and their voices were cold. "Human Tom," said the lead guard, "by the order of the High Council, you are to appear before the royal chamber for questioning." Tom blinked in confusion. "Questioning? About what?" "The princess, your influence." Before Tom could ask more, they escorted him through the long silver corridors. He noticed how everyone avoided eye contact. The friendly nods and smiles he used to get were gone. The palace suddenly felt colder, less welcoming. When he entered the royal court, it was already full. Rows of tall Volari elders, their glowing robes shifting colors with their emotions, sat in a half-circle. Princess Nira was on her throne, looking calm but tense. Tom bowed slightly, unsure of what to do. "Tom of Earth," began Counselor Marin, an older Volari with silver markings on his skin. "You are accused of disrespecting our traditions and manipulating the mind of Her Royal Highness." Tom frowned. "Manipulating? I'd never do that. I only spoke honestly." "Honesty," Marin said sharply, "is not always harmless. You made the princess question her own nature. You laugh where others would show reverence. You are dangerous because you do not fear her." Tom stood straight. "Maybe I don't fear her because I respect her. Fear and respect aren't the same thing." The counselors murmured among themselves. Some looked offended. Others looked thoughtful. Princess Nira finally spoke. "Enough!" Her voice was firm but calm. "He has done nothing wrong. I asked him questions no one else dared to answer. He gave truth, not lies." Another counselor, tall and stern, replied, "Your Highness, he has changed you. We all see it. You are softer, distracted, even defiant toward the council. This human has broken the balance of our order." Tom felt a chill. This wasn't just about him. It was about how his humanity clashed with their way of life. "Then test me," he said suddenly. "If you think I'm a danger, give me a chance to prove myself. Humans don't run from questions." A ripple of surprise spread through the hall. The council members whispered again. Then Princess Nira stood, her scales shining like dawn light. "There is a stranded Volari outpost near the dying star Alvora," she said. "Its energy shields are failing and the radiation storms are strong. I was planning a rescue, but the risks are high. Let this human go with me. If he truly means no harm to our people, he will help save them. Counselor Marin frowned but nodded slowly. Very well. Let this be the test. If he succeeds, we will believe his words. If not, he will be sent back to Earth in disgrace. Tom didn't hesitate. I accept. The next day, the rescue mission began. The royal cruiser Vera's light shimmered as it launched into the dark sea of stars. Tom stood beside Princess Nira on the command bridge. The dying star ahead of them glowed an angry orange, surrounded by storms of charged particles. The Valari outpost orbited nearby, half its structure already damaged by solar flares. Tom looked at the readings. If the radiation keeps rising, their shield will collapse in a few hours, Nira nodded. We must act fast. Her voice was steady, but Tom noticed her hands tighten slightly on the control rail. Even she knew the danger. The ship shook as it entered the storm zone. Waves of energy flashed across the shields like lightning. Alarms rang and the air vibrated with power. Hold course, Tom said calmly. Your systems are strong, but the heat levels are rising too fast. Divert some power to the cooling coils. Nira turned to him surprised. How do you know that? Tom smiled faintly. It's basic reactor physics. Different world, same problems. Together, they worked with the crew to stabilize the ship. The storm grew thicker and visibility dropped. Through the glowing haze, the outpost finally appeared. Its outer wall cracked, its beacon flickering weakly. Nira ordered the shuttle to prepare. But as they moved closer, another burst of radiation hit, knocking the power grid offline for a few seconds. Main systems down, shouted a crew member. Tom rushed to the console. I'll reroute through the manual line. Give me access to the lower panel. Nira crouched beside him, her glowing eyes watching as his human hands worked quickly over alien tech. Wires, circuits, and glowing conduits sparked, but Tom didn't stop. After a few tense moments, the systems hummed back to life. He grinned. We're back online. The princess smiled faintly. You risked your life for our ship. Someone had to, he said simply. Can't save anyone if we don't make it there first. When they reached the outpost, they saw the damage was worse than expected. The shield generator was nearly destroyed and several Valari workers were trapped inside. The radiation made teleportation impossible. Nira looked at Tom. You should stay on the ship. It's too dangerous, Tom shook his head. No. You'll need someone who knows repair systems. Despite her protest, he followed her down to the surface. The air shimmered with energy, and the ground trembled. Tom's suit screen flashed warnings, but he ignored them. Together, they reached the generator room where flickering blue energy arcs jumped from wall to wall. Tom scanned the system. If we can link that core to your ship's reactor, we can keep the shield up long enough for everyone to evacuate. Nira hesitated. That could overload both systems. Yeah, he said with a grin. But it's better than losing everyone. They worked side by side. Sweat rolled down Tom's face and Nira's scales dimmed from exhaustion, but neither gave up. The outpost shook as another flare hit, but the shield held, flickering but alive one by one. The trapped Valari escaped to safety. Finally, when the last of them had gone, Tom shut down the manual override. His hands trembled from the heat. Everyone's out, he said, breathing hard. Nira looked at him with deep respect. You risked everything for people who doubted you. Tom smiled tiredly. That's what humans do. We try anyway. When they returned to the capital, the council awaited them. The rescued Valari workers stood beside the throne, their gratitude clear. Counselor Marin spoke first. We have heard of your courage. You saved lives even when our own officers hesitated. Tom bowed slightly. It wasn't just me. The princess led the mission. Princess Nira stepped forward. No, she said. He led with heart. He saw solutions when fear blinded us. You asked for proof, he gave it. The hall fell silent. Then slowly the counselors rose in respect. Counselor Marin's voice softened. Human Tom, the Valari Empire thanks you. Perhaps we judged you too quickly. Tom felt relief wash over him. He looked at Nira, who smiled warmly. You see? She whispered. You proved that laughter and courage can change more than rules, and they can change hearts. Tom chuckled softly. Guess humans are good for something after all. The hall filled with soft laughter, the kind that no longer carried tension or doubt. That day, the trial of the human ended not in punishment, but in understanding. And somewhere deep inside, Princess Nira realized that the strange human from the blue world had not only saved her people, he had also helped her find her own strength. The great halls of the Valari Palace had never felt so alive. The story of the human who saved the outpost had spread like sunlight through every corner of the empire. In markets, schools, and starports, people whispered the tale, not as gossip, but as something greater. It was the kind of story that made others pause and think. For centuries, the Valari had seen themselves as beings of perfection, flawless in form, speech, and culture. But now, because of one human's laugh, that belief was beginning to change. Tom didn't think of himself as a hero. He still felt like the same simple engineer who liked fixing things. But every time he walked through the palace now, aliens bowed their heads respectfully. The same guards who once glared at him now greeted him warmly. Still, Tom remained humble. "I just did my job," he told them. Anyone would have done the same. But the truth was, not everyone would have. A few days after the rescue, Princess Nira invited Tom to the observation garden, her favorite place. A quiet area filled with glowing plants and soft streams of energy that shimmered in the air like mist. It was a peaceful evening. Beyond the transparent walls, the stars glimmered across the endless sky. Nira stood by the fountain, her reflection rippling across the water. When she turned, her eyes carried a warmth that Tom had never seen before. "You look tired," she said gently. Tom smiled. "Maybe a little, but I'm just glad everyone made it back." She nodded. "You risked your life for people who didn't even trust you." "That's what makes it worth it," he said. "When people stop believing in you, that's when you have to try even harder." Nira looked at him quietly, then smiled faintly. "Do you know what the council did today?" "No idea," he said, sitting on a nearby bench. "They changed one of our royal laws," she said. "From now on, no visitor from another world will be judged by appearance or form. They will be welcomed for their spirit, not their face." Tom blinked, surprised. "They did that?" "Yes," she said softly. "They said your laughter changed more than my pride. It changed their hearts." Tom didn't know what to say. He scratched his head and laughed lightly. "Well, that's something I didn't expect to do when I woke up that morning." For a moment, they both sat in silence, listening to the soft hum of the palace gardens. The flowers glowed with gentle light and strange insect-like creatures floated lazily through the air. Finally, Nira spoke again. "Tom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." She hesitated. Her voice softened, just like that first day. "Do you still think I'm not ugly?" Tom chuckled, remembering the day everything began. "You're still thinking about that?" "Yes," she admitted, a small smile forming. "It was a strange question, wasn't it?" "Maybe," he said, "but it was honest, and my answer hasn't changed." Nira tilted her head slightly, her scales reflecting soft blue light. "You humans see beauty differently. To most Valari, beauty is about symmetry, glow, and harmony. But when I asked you that question, you laughed. Why?" Tom looked up at the stars. "Because the question was funny. Not because of you, but because it sounded impossible. You were asking if something amazing could ever be ugly." She blinked. "Amazing?" "Yeah," he said with a grin. "You looked like living art. But what made it special wasn't the colors or the light. It was that you looked alive. You were real. You weren't trying to hide behind what others expected. That's what humans find beautiful." Nira watched him for a long moment, then smiled softly. "You make the world sound so simple." "It is," Tom said. "We just make it complicated." Over the next few weeks, Tom's life changed in quiet but meaningful ways. The Valari Council invited him to attend meetings about human technology. Scholars asked him to explain human psychology and culture. Young Valari engineers followed him everywhere, eager to learn how humans fix things with limited tools and endless creativity. Sometimes Tom laughed, saying, "You don't need to copy humans, you just need to believe you can solve things your own way." But the princess watched from afar, proud of how much her people had learned. One day, as they were walking through the palace gardens again, Nira said, Do you know what I used to fear most? Tom looked at her curiously. What? Being seen, she said quietly. Every time I entered a hall, I felt eyes judging me. I thought their silence meant they found me strange or unworthy. But you laughed. You broke that silence. Tom looked thoughtful. Sometimes laughter isn't mockery. It's just the only way humans know how to show surprise and wonder at the same time. She smiled, touched by his words. Then I'm glad you laughed, Tom. The months passed. The alliance between Earth and the Volari Empire grew stronger. Human engineers helped improve Volari ships, and Volari scientists taught humans how to grow energy crystals that powered entire colonies. The story of the princess and the human became part of galactic folklore. Children from different worlds learned it in schools as a lesson in kindness and understanding. The phrase, "Am I ugly?" became a saying that meant, "Do you see my worth beyond what you see?" And every time Tom heard someone say it, he smiled quietly. On the anniversary of the outpost rescue, a grand ceremony was held in the capital city. The hall was filled with music and shimmering light. Delegates from dozens of planets attended, all eager to honor those who had bridged worlds. When it was time for speeches, Princess Nira stood at the center of the platform. She wore a ceremonial robe that glowed softly with silver patterns, symbols of peace and unity. Her voice echoed across the hall. A year ago, a human stood before me, unafraid, unpolished, and completely honest. He did not see a princess. He saw a person. And when I asked him if I was ugly, he laughed. Not in insult, but in disbelief. That laughter, that simple sound changed everything. The crowd listened in silence. Even the air seemed still. Because of that moment, she continued, I learned that beauty is not a mirror's reflection, but a reflection of the heart. It is not given by others, it is discovered within. She turned toward Tom, who stood among the guests, looking both humble and proud. And so, she said softly, we honor the one who reminded us that truth and kindness can travel farther than light. The entire hall rose in applause. The sound echoed through the vast chamber like waves of warmth. Tom bowed his head slightly, embarrassed but smiling. He had never liked attention, but seeing the princess speak with such confidence made him feel it was all worth it. After the ceremony, Tom found himself once again in the garden, watching the stars. Nira joined him quietly, her robe still glowing faintly. It's strange, he said. A year ago, I was just an engineer trying to fix machines. Now I'm part of some royal history lesson. She laughed softly. Sometimes the universe chooses strange messengers. He smiled. Yeah, guess it chose a laughing one this time. For a moment, they both looked up at the sky. Endless, full of stars, each one a story waiting to happen. Then Nira said quietly, Tom, what will you do next? I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe go home for a while, see the blue skies again, maybe teach others what I learned here. She nodded. And what did you learn? He looked at her, his eyes warm, that no one is ugly, not if they carry kindness inside, and that laughter is the shortest path between two hearts. Nira smiled. Her eyes shimmered like soft crystal light. Then go, human Tom, and when you see your world again, tell them that the Volari send their thanks for your courage and for your laughter. Tom nodded, smiling. I will. As he left the palace for the last time, he turned once more to see the shining towers behind him. The lights of the Volari capital danced like living stars, and at the highest balcony, he saw Princess Nira, standing, her gaze following his ship as it lifted toward the sky. For a long time she watched until the blue trail faded into the endless black. Then she whispered softly to herself, words no one else could hear. No, human, I am not ugly. Not anymore. And somewhere, far away among the stars, Tom smiled as if he had heard her. The galaxy moved on, brighter, kinder, and a little more human than before.